black woman mocked for asking about first-class upgrade. 9 minutes later, she fires the entire team at an airport counter. Imagine this? A woman confidently approaches an airline service desk to inquire about a first-class upgrade. Instead of receiving a professional response, she's met with mockery and disdain. Little do they know, in just 9 minutes, their world will be turned upside down. But what could she possibly do that would leave an entire airline team humiliated and jobless? Before we dive into the details, if you love inspiring stories of resilience and justice, make sure to hit that like button, share this video with friends, and subscribe for more incredible stories. Your support helps us bring these impactful narratives to even more viewers. Let's step into the story, starting at the crowded airline counter where everything begins. The airport was alive with its usual chaos, a symphony of hurried conversations, the clatter of rolling suitcases, and the distant chime of flight announcements. Travelers darted from gate to gate, their faces painted with a mix of excitement, fatigue, and frustration. The polished floors reflected the constant motion, adding to the dizzying whirlwind of activity. In the midst of this commotion stood Angela Carter, a picture of calm in a storm of hurried energy. With her small leather carry-on in hand, she exuded a quiet confidence that set her apart. Angela's understated elegance wasn't flashy, but it was impossible to overlook. Dressed in a simple navy blazer over a crisp, white blouse, paired with tailored trousers and low heels, she was the kind of person who drew attention only when she spoke. Angela had spent years climbing the ranks in the corporate world, mastering the art of patience and precision. She was a woman who let her actions speak louder than words. Despite her success, she'd always preferred to avoid the spotlight, blending seamlessly into the crowd whenever possible. But today, her composure and resilience would be tested in a way she hadn't anticipated. Miss Angela's flight to Chicago was set to depart in just over an hour, giving her ample time to inquire about a first-class upgrade. After days of grueling meetings and sleepless nights, the promise of comfort wasn't a luxury, it was a necessity. As she waited in line at the airline service desk, her calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the frantic energy around her. When her turn finally came, Angela stepped forward with a polite smile, ready to make her request. Little did she know, the next few minutes would ignite a chain of events that would test not only her patience, but also the character of those behind the counter. When Angela Carter stepped up to the airline service desk, she was met with indifference. Two employees, Linda and Marcus, barely acknowledged her presence. Amanda twirled a pen lazily, her eyes glued to the screen in front of her, while Marcus adjusted his tie, his attention scattered between the keyboard and the bustling terminal. Angela cleared her throat softly. "Good afternoon," she began in a calm, professional tone. "I'd like to ask if there are any first-class upgrades available for Flight 308 to Chicago." Linda Foley glanced up, her disinterest evident. "First-class upgrades?" she repeated, her tone tinged with disbelief, as if Angela's question were absurd. Marcus leaned in, his smug grin adding an edge to the encounter. "Upgrades aren't cheap," he said, lowering his voice but not his condescension. "You sure about that, ma'am?" Angela's brow arched slightly, but her voice remained steady. "I'm aware of the costs. I'd just like to know if any are available." Linda and Marcus exchanged a knowing glance, one of those silent exchanges that carried an unmistakable meaning. Linda chuckled under her breath, just loud enough to be heard. "I mean, first class isn't for everyone, you know," she said, her words sharp and laced with mockery. Angela's grip on the handle of her carry-on tightened, but her expression remained calm. She had seen this before too many times. Their assumptions weren't about her question, but about her appearance, her demeanor, and what they believed she could afford. Marcus's smirk grew as he lazily tapped at the keyboard. "Let me check for you, ma'am," he said, his exaggerated courtesy dripping with insincerity. Linda added with a low murmur, "You people always aim a little too high, huh?" The words hung in the air like an unspoken challenge, their meaning clear and stinging. Angela felt the familiar heat of frustration rising, but took a slow, measured breath. Losing her composure here would only give them the satisfaction they sought. Instead, she met Marcus's smug gaze with an unflinching stare. "I didn't ask for your opinion," she said softly, her voice cutting through their mockery. "I asked about availability." Passengers in line behind her began to notice the tension. A few exchanged disapproving glances at Linda and Marcus's behavior, but Angela didn't need anyone to step in. With quiet resolve, She reached into her blazer pocket and made a decision that would change everything in the next 9 minutes. Angela Carter calmly reached into the pocket of her blazer and pulled out her phone. Her movements were deliberate, her demeanor still unshaken despite the blatant mockery she had just endured. With practiced ease, she dialed a number and pressed the phone to her ear. "Hi, it's Angela Carter," she said in a low, composed voice. "I'm at the airport, gate 25B. Could you send Mr. David down here immediately? We need to address a personnel issue." Her tone was businesslike, without a hint of anger or frustration, but her words carried a weight that Linda and Marcus completely missed. Linda snorted, leaning on the counter with exaggerated nonchalance. "Wow, pulling out the big guns, huh? You think we're scared of a manager?" Marcus smirked and added, "Don't worry, ma'am. I'm sure someone important will come down to help you." His sarcasm hung thick in the air, eliciting a chuckle from Linda. Angela said nothing, slipping her phone back into her pocket. A faint, knowing smile tugged at the corners of her lips as she stepped aside to wait. Linda and Marcus, emboldened by their own arrogance, continued their mocking banter. Passengers in the growing line began murmuring among themselves. A middle-aged man near the front frowned at the employees, while others exchanged looks of disbelief. An older woman shook her head in disapproval, her gaze fixed on Linda and Marcus as they whispered and laughed. Despite the mounting tension, Angela stood poised, her calm demeanor unwavering. Years of corporate leadership had taught her patience, a skill she wielded like a weapon. She didn't need to raise her voice or retaliate. She simply waited, letting Linda and Marcus's overconfidence dig their own graves. Minutes passed, each one amplifying the sense of anticipation. To Angela's right, a young couple shifted uncomfortably, stealing glances at the service desk. To her left, a man in a suit stepped out of line and approached her quietly. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said softly. "Is everything all right?" Angela offered him a polite nod. "It will be," she replied, her tone steady and resolute. Just then, the sound of polished shoes against the terminal floor broke through the tension. Angela didn't need to turn to know who it was. Mr. David, a senior airline executive, strode toward the counter with purpose, his expression stern and unyielding. Marcus's smirk faltered as Mr. David approached, while Linda's posture stiffened. The reality of the situation began to dawn on them, but it was far too late. With Mr. David's arrival, the dynamic at the counter shifted completely. What had begun as a moment of mockery would now become a lesson neither employee would forget. As Mr. David approached the counter, his commanding presence shifted the atmosphere instantly. His polished black shoes and tailored suit made it clear he was someone important. His sharp gaze moved past Linda and Marcus, focusing solely on Angela. "Miss Carter," he said respectfully, extending his hand. "I apologize for any inconvenience you've experienced. I came as soon as I was informed." Angela shook his hand, her expression calm but firm. "Thank you for coming, Mr. David," she said. "I believe we need to address a personnel issue here." Marcus and Linda exchanged nervous glances. The smugness they had worn so confidently moments earlier had vanished, replaced by wide-eyed disbelief. Marcus stammered, "Wait, who is she?" Mr. David didn't even look at him. Turning to Angela, he asked, "What would you like to do, Miss Carter?" Angela tilted her head slightly, her gaze steady. "I'd like to ensure that professionalism and respect are maintained at all levels. Unfortunately, I don't believe that's been the case here." Linda, who had been fidgeting nervously, tried to recover her composure. "Wait, we didn't mean anything by it. It was just a misunderstanding." Angela met Amanda's gaze briefly, her expression unreadable. "Your actions and words were clear," she said evenly, "and they've been heard by more people than you realize." Mr. David turned to the employees. "Linda, Marcus, as of this moment, you are relieved of your duties. Security will escort you out of the terminal." Marcus's face turned bright red. "You can't do this. I didn't." "She can," Mr. Marcus interrupted sharply, and she just did. Linda looked as though she might cry, her hands flying to her mouth. "Please, Mr. David." But Mr. David didn't waver. "The behavior you've exhibited is unacceptable and reflects poorly on our airline. You will have the opportunity to explain your actions during an internal review." And murmurs from the surrounding passengers grew louder. Some looked on with satisfaction, while others shook their heads at the employee's downfall. Security personnel appeared at the edge of the counter, ready to escort Linda and Marcus away. Angela remained composed throughout the ordeal, She didn't gloat, nor did she dwell on their humiliation. Instead, she turned to Mr. David and said, "Now about my upgrade." "Of course, Miss Carter," he said immediately, his tone apologetic. "We'll have you comfortably seated in first class." Angela offered a small, polite nod. "Thank you. I appreciate it." As Linda and Marcus were led away, Angela picked up her carry-on and prepared to head to her gate. But despite her outward calm, the experience lingered in her thoughts. This wasn't the first time she had been underestimated or disrespected because of how she looked. And while the outcome had been swift and just, the sting of their words, "especially you people," still echoed in her mind. Settling into her first-class seat, Angela allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. Justice had been served, but the weight of the experience was a reminder of the battles she continued to face. Later that evening, as Angela Carter settled into her hotel room, her phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. She hesitated for a moment before answering. "Hello, this is Angela," she said, her tone calm and professional. There was a pause on the other end before a hesitant voice replied, "Mrs. Carter, this is Amanda, from the airport." Angela's brow arched slightly, but her voice remained neutral. "Yes, Linda. What can I do for you?" Linda took a deep breath, her words faltering. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry, truly, for how I acted earlier. I wasn't thinking, and I was wrong." Angela let the words hang in the air for a moment, allowing Linda to sit with the weight of her apology. "I appreciate you reaching out," Angela said finally, her tone steady but firm. "But words are not enough. What happened today wasn't just a mistake, it was a reflection of your assumptions and attitudes. Do you understand that?" "Yes," Linda replied softly. "I do. I've been replaying everything I said, and I can't believe how disrespectful I was. I've realized I have a lot to learn. I don't want to be that kind of person." Angela's tone softened slightly, though her resolve remained. "Acknowledging your mistakes is a start, Linda. But growth takes work. It means examining not just your words, but the thoughts behind them. It's not easy, but it's necessary if you truly want to change." Linda's voice wavered. "I'm ready to do that. I don't want today to define me. I want to be better." Angela paused, then said, "Growth isn't about erasing the past. It's about learning from it and becoming someone who can help prevent these situations in the future. If you're serious about change, show it not just to me, but to yourself and everyone you interact with." Linda's voice was quiet but determined. "I will. Thank you, Miss Carter, for everything." Angela ended the call, leaning back in her chair. She didn't need Linda's apology to validate her, but she hoped the experience would be a turning point for the young woman. As Angela prepared for her next meeting, she reflected on the moment. Respect isn't freely given, it's demanded through strength and consistency. And sometimes, it's about leaving the door open for others to learn from their mistakes. The next morning, Angela walked into a gleaming boardroom, her posture confident and her presence commanding. As the sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows, she prepared to face her next challenge, ready to continue writing her story, one of resilience, leadership, and the quiet power of standing firm. Angela Carter's story is a powerful reminder that respect is not optional, it's both earned and deserved. What began as a moment of mockery at an airport counter turned into a lesson Linda and Marcus will never forget. Angela's calm yet decisive action showed the strength of quiet power and the importance of holding others accountable for their behavior. This story teaches us to never judge someone by appearances. Behind Angela's understated demeanor was a lifetime of experience, resilience, and quiet authority. It's a reminder that we should approach everyone with respect and professionalism because we never truly know who we're speaking to or the battles they've fought to get where they are. Angela didn't let disrespect define her or throw her off balance. Instead, she stood firm, demanded accountability, and used her position to inspire change, not just for herself but for others who face similar challenges. For Linda, the story ended with an opportunity for reflection and growth. It's a testament to the idea that while mistakes can't be undone, they can be powerful learning moments if approached with sincerity and a willingness to change. As you reflect on Angela's journey, ask yourself, how can you approach others with more respect and empathy in your daily life? And when faced with disrespect, how can you rise above and demand the dignity you deserve? If Angela's story inspired you, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more real-life stories of resilience and justice. Your support helps us bring these empowering tales to even more viewers. Thank you for watching, and remember, strength comes from standing firm, and respect is a universal right we should all uphold. See you in the next story.